Hey guys, welcome back to Tipharot. It's me, Matt here, and in a minute you're going to get some video, but before we start I'm going to explain what this video is and what to expect. So today's video is actually part of a consultation that I did with someone. Now they've asked me to keep their name out of it, but they said that I can share this with you guys so that you guys can benefit from this knowledge as well. So they approached me and said that they'd been having some issues with social interactions, and in particular they have an issue where they keep finding themselves putting their foot in their mouth or saying or doing inappropriate things during their interaction. Ordinarily, social interactions are not the kind of thing that I help with in my consultations, since as you probably know if you've been watching me for a while, I have social anxiety myself, so it's not exactly my forte. But this particular area was something that I thought I could help with because as someone with social anxiety, this is something that I struggled with over the years. You know, saying things that I maybe shouldn't, or also feeling like I've said things that I maybe shouldn't even when I actually haven't and when the interaction's gone completely fine. And so in my consultation, I shared some of the things that have worked for me to help avoid doing this. Apologies in advance for being so close to the camera and also for the audio issues during the second half of this video. Basically, this was my first time recording with my new phone, and so there were a couple of issues there. I ironed most of it out. It was like basically unlistenable at first. But I got it to the point that it was fairly okay. But there's a few bits where the quality drops or gets a little bit bumpy. Anyway, without further ado, onto the video itself. So the first piece of advice is stick with analysing afterwards as well. You're going to want to do that because there's only so much you can do during the interactions themselves without the interactions coming off as a little bit robotic. You know, in a normal interaction, when you're having a conversation with your mates, you know, you shouldn't be spending too much time thinking about if the interaction is going well, what you should be doing next, and so on. If you're overthinking, things are going to go badly. Now, I do have a technique for you to avoid overthinking during the interaction, and that is to go back to what you've learned from meditation and take a nice deep breath, just a nice big deep breath, and then focus on your breathing while you're there during the conversation, instead of focusing on your thoughts. Now, my second tip for you isn't really something, you know, a technique or a, you know, trick that you use during a social interaction, but it's something that bears saying anyway, and that is to practice and get lots of trial and error done. You know, you are going to learn from having more social interactions and practicing these things, and especially focus on the things that you find difficult. You mentioned that you put your foot in your mouth or you act or say things inappropriately. Well, try and think about when that mostly happens. You know, is it with particular people? Is it during particular types of conversation, like, you know, maybe job interviews or when you're having an argument with someone or whatever? Identify that and try and practice those situations specifically. Now, this can be actually practicing them for real, but it can also just be role play. Just get a friend or your therapist or something and actually act out that sort of interaction. This is especially useful if, you know, for example, you find yourself putting your foot in your mouth during an argument. You don't want to just go out and get in lots of arguments just so you can practice that. Just get one of your mates to pretend having an argument with you and try and, you know, practice controlling yourself and not putting your foot in your mouth. And this also goes for the positive side of interactions as well. You know, if you just want to learn to have better interactions in general, then practice the kind of interactions that you find yourself struggling most with. You know, if you're trying to get a date, then spend more time meeting women and practicing talking to women. If you're trying to have better interactions with your employer, then actually spend more time speaking to people at work in general in that sort of environment. Tip number 3 is probably the most useful and the most important tip that I'm actually going to give you today. And it's the thing that has changed social interactions the most for me, by far. And that is just to learn to listen. Now, when you first hear this, you're probably thinking, you know, I know how to listen. I'm always listening when I'm talking to people. And most people are always listening when they're talking to people. But very few people listen properly during social interactions. I mean very, very few. Like if you talk to 10 people, maybe one of them properly listens to you, if that. So properly listening means that you're not thinking about what you want to say next. When you're actually listening to someone speak, you're purely listening to them. You're not in your head, you're just focused on them and what they're saying. Now, this can be hard to do at first because naturally we want to think about what we're going to say next so that we know what to say and so that we're not stuck. But what you'll actually find is that if you spend all of your time listening to the other person, then when it comes your turn to speak, that you know what to say anyway, and you say something a lot better than if you were stuck in your head and not listening to what they said. And by listening and letting them speak, there's far less chance of you putting your foot in your mouth. But also, and this is perhaps the most important benefit of this, you're going to make that other person feel really, really good. Because as I said, true listeners are not that common. And I'm sure you've encountered this yourself, where you'll be talking with people and, it seems like they get a bit bored with what you're saying, or, they just start talking about something else and you never got to finish what you're saying, or they interrupted you, in the middle of conversation. And it's not very enjoyable talking to people like that. But most people tend to do that to some degree. And when you learn instead to just let them say what they want to say and genuinely listen to it and be interested, then you make that other person feel really good, because not many other people have listened to them properly. And so they feel like the conversation has gone really, really great. Now, I just want to take a moment to shout out a really good book here, because while I learned that listening thing myself, it's actually a whole section in this book, and I found this book immensely helpful for social interactions. I'm not an expert on social interactions. It's not my forte. I have social anxiety, so I've struggled a lot with them over the years, and, I basically had to teach myself how to socialize and so on. But I learned a lot from this book. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. You've probably heard of it before. It is a very well-known book, and it is an amazing book if you want to be better at socializing. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. Tip number 4 is to get people to talk about themselves. People like to talk, and like I said before, when you actually listen to people, they're going to feel really good, because not many people listen to them. But give them opportunities to talk about things that they're interested in, that they love. Ask them questions, and don't just ask them simple yes/no questions. Ask them open-ended questions where they can talk for a while. And this goes really back to the thing about not putting your foot in your mouth, because the thing is, if you ask lots of yes/no questions and lots of simple questions that are very quick and easy to answer, then what happens? Well, you end up carrying the conversation. You end up doing most of the talking. And when you end up doing most of the talking, what happens? You have a way, way higher chance of saying something inappropriate, because you're talking 10 times more than the other person. Just statistically, it's more likely to happen. If you ask them, these proper questions where they can speak about all their interests and so on, and they can speak for a long time, then you can just listen and not have to worry about butting in and saying something silly. And this also makes it a lot easier when it is your turn to speak, because now that they've had a chance to talk about the things that they love, you can ask them more questions about that and let them talk again. Tip number 5 is don't be afraid to pause during an interaction, to actually think about what you're going to say next. Now, this might sound contradictory, because earlier I said that you shouldn't be overthinking in interactions and that you should be listening rather than thinking about what to say next. Well, when I say to pause, I mean when it's your turn to speak. You don't have to reply right away. You can take a moment. You can take a breather. I think that a reason that a lot of us don't do this is because we watch lots of films and TV shows. And in films and TV shows, conversations are structured in a way where there is constant talking going on, because, they don't want to just leave a 2-minute pause or whatever in a movie. But in the real world, it's okay to pause, to take a minute to reflect on what the other person said and to actually think about it. You don't have to respond right away. And by taking a moment, even if it's just a couple of seconds, even if you just breathe in, take a deep breath and, count to 5 or something, that's going to make it a lot easier to avoid saying something stupid. Now, when you're thinking about what to say, one thing that you can do is just ask yourself a simple question. Does what I have to say benefit the conversation and benefit both of us? If it's something that you really want to say, but it doesn't move the conversation forward in any way, or it's just going to annoy the other person, or it's just going to annoy you, don't say it. Simple as that. Tip number 6 is to go online and actually look for resources on learning how to be a better storyteller. And then when you're actually in a conversation, try and use those storytelling skills in everything that you're saying. So one thing that you might have noticed in people that you've interacted with yourself is that people like to talk about themselves, like I said before, and they will tell you about all the things that they've been up to, all the things going on in their lives. But you've probably noticed that there are some people, they'll be talking about their lives, and it just sounds like they're rambling, and you're just waiting for them to finish. You're wondering, God, this is so boring. How can they talk about this for so long? Can't they just, stop and give me a chance to speak or change the subject? And you'll be listening to other people, and you'll have the complete opposite experience. They'll be talking about their lives, and you're sitting there and you're kind of enthralled by what they're saying and you're really engaged with it. And the difference often isn't what they're talking about, it's how they're talking about it. It's the fact that the second person is actually a good storyteller. They're engaging you as you're listening, and so they're fun to talk to and they're fun to listen to. So learn this, and people are going to enjoy listening to you as well. But it's also going to mean that when you do say things, you learn how to say them in a way that's received better. And so this is going to help with putting your foot in your mouth, because you're going to know how to avoid saying things in a way that, irritates people or offends people or whatever. You can deliver it in a way that just kind of negates that negative blow. Tip number 7 is to find common ground and the things that you agree on with the other person. Now, this is great in all interactions. Let's say that you're meeting someone new and you want to become friends. Then it's obviously great to find all of the things that you agree on, because, hey, now you've got a bunch of things that you can talk about. You've got a bunch of ways that you feel connected to each other, and so that makes you feel closer, and so it's easier to become friends. So it's just great all around. But this is especially good when you don't agree with the other person. Maybe you have opposing political views, or maybe you're in an argument with this person, or maybe they said something that really frustrates you and annoys you. By finding common ground, you can diffuse any, anger or resentment on their part, and you can also stop yourself from butting in and saying something that you're later going to regret. Because the fact is, we can't agree with everyone. In fact, we can't agree fully on 100% of things with anyone. I bet if you picked any person in the world, even the people that you're certain that you agree on everything with, I bet you could find at least something that you would have a major disagreement over. That's just the way that the world is. So rather than focusing on those disagreements, find the things that you do agree on. This is especially useful in persuasion as well. If you're trying to actually persuade someone around to your view, arguing will never work. You can't get blood out of a stone. You can't, just actually get someone to completely change their viewpoints like that. But if you find the things that you already agree on, then you might be able to find some kind of compromise. Once you find yourself agreeing on things, then you start feeling like you like each other, and then that other person might concede on some points and agree to some of your viewpoints. And not only that, but they might do it in a way that they feel comfortable with. They don't feel like they've been pressured or like it's been an argument. They feel like it's been a nice, civil conversation. Tip number 8 is just to naturally steer the conversation away from divisive subjects most of the time. Now, if you're with a good friend and you know the kind of things that it's okay to talk about with them and so on, then it's fine to talk about whatever. You can talk about politics, you can talk about this, you can talk about that. But if you're just having a conversation with a colleague at work or a date or someone you've just met or whatever, then try and avoid those subjects where people hold strong opinions, especially ones where you find yourself holding strong opinions, because once you get on those subjects, you're naturally going to find that maybe you agree on some things, but you're probably going to have some areas where you disagree, and that's the moment where suddenly things feel heated, suddenly you want to argue, you want to debate, and so on, and that's when you're most likely to put your foot in your mouth. I know for me personally that, I feel strongly about things, and while I'm generally a calm and collected person who tries not to put my foot in my mouth, if I get into heated discussions about certain things, I naturally just will. So what I do is, if I'm out at the bar and I'm chatting with people or whatever, I just don't talk about those subjects. If someone brings them up, then I change the conversation. And if someone is really pushing it, I just keep changing the conversation. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to talk about those kind of things. Just get me and the other person riled up for no reason. Tip number 9 builds off the listening that you've done earlier, and also the pausing before you speak. So when you do pause before you speak, and also at the start of any conversation with someone, take a moment to think about who you're talking to and how that's going to affect the conversation. Because obviously there's an appropriate way to behave with your best mate, and there's an appropriate way to behave with, your boss. And those are very, very different. So, take a moment to think about that and how it's going to affect the interaction. And on the one hand, this feels like something obvious. You think that you know how to behave around your boss and how to behave around your friends and how to behave around so-and-so. But in reality, a lot of us can forget and slip up. So it's good to remind yourself at the start of an interaction and before you say anything that, hey, this is this person and I have to be this way around them. Because you do have to be a bit of a chameleon at times and act differently and talk differently around different people. And this also ties in with tip number 8 about avoiding divisive subjects, because, with certain people you might not need to. With certain people it might be okay to talk about those kind of things. But, you need to know where it's obviously appropriate and where it's not, because, if you risk it in those situations where it might not be appropriate, that's when not only are you potentially likely to put your foot in your mouth, they are too, and also there might be some danger of the interaction just completely falling apart at that point. And this isn't just about the bad side of interactions and, avoiding saying the wrong thing. This is also about the good side. Know the other person and their interests, the things that they like talking about, the things that excite them, the things that engage them. By knowing this is really, really going to help you. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a secret here, and that is, you've probably heard the idea that, you can't not think of a pink elephant. Someone tells you, try not to think of a pink elephant, and it's impossible. You say, I'm not going to think of a pink elephant, and by doing that, you're thinking of a pink elephant. And there's a similar principle at play here with putting your foot in your mouth. When you say, I'm not going to say or do anything inappropriate, I'm going to try not to do anything wrong. By trying not to do anything wrong, you're overthinking it, you're already breaking that first rule, and so there's a good chance that you will. The easiest way to not think of a pink elephant is to think about something else. The easiest way to not say something inappropriate is to be saying something appropriate. So when you learn about what the other person wants to talk about and you can get them talking about that and you can get yourself talking about that, then you have way less opportunity to slip up and think of that pink elephant, or in other words, say something silly. Finally, tip number 10, this goes both during interactions themselves and after the interaction. So just realize that you are going to put your foot in your mouth sometimes. It's okay. It's okay to say something stupid. It's okay to say or do something that you regret every so often. Every single person does it. And this was a major realization for me. Okay, my situation is a bit different because, like I said, I have social anxiety. But for ages, I would, find myself laying awake at night thinking over those stupid things I said or did and thinking, why am I like this? Why is it that I do this and no one else does this? And what I found when speaking to friends, when speaking to people who I saw as, super confident, really great people at socializing, what I found is that everyone has it. Everyone has things that they've said that were stupid, things that they've said that they regret. Everyone gets heated sometimes and argues when they shouldn't. Everyone, says that stupid thing around their boss that they shouldn't have said or whatever. We all have these moments. So when you have one of those moments, the first thing is to identify whether it's serious or not. If you've done something a little bit embarrassing, said something a little bit embarrassing or whatever, it's probably not that serious. Now, if you've said something, very offensive, it's a major thing, then that's a bit more serious. So if it's not serious, just move on. Just forget it and move on. You don't have to beat yourself up about it. You don't have to feel guilty about it. It happens sometimes. Learn from it and move on. If it is something serious, apologize immediately. Even if you are angry at this person and you don't want to apologize, just do it. Just say, I'm sorry, shouldn't have said that, and move forward from there. But whether it's minor or major, whether the other person can move past it or not, and it's something that completely ends the interaction and ruins it, don't beat yourself up about it. If you want to do anything about it, learn from it. Take that time to use the techniques that you've learned from CBT to identify what went wrong in your thinking and in the interaction itself, and analyze it afterwards and come up with a solution for how you're going to avoid this next time. And also come back and go over these 10 tips again and see, where you might have gone wrong and where you might not have used some of these. But don't feel like you failed or like, you're terrible at social interactions or whatever. It's natural to say things that are stupid. It's natural to do things that are stupid. Don't worry about it. Next time, you'll do a little bit better. Now, I genuinely hope that you find my tips today helpful. And I want to close this off by adding that, I'm a person with social anxiety. My social skills are not the greatest in the world. I've learned that much of what I've talked about today from other people, from people that I know that are great at socializing, and from the books that I've read and so on. So I highly recommend as well checking out some other resources. I recommend checking out that book that I mentioned to you, and I recommend even just going on YouTube and looking at videos that give you advice on socializing. I've learned a lot from those. There's a great channel that I really like called Charisma on Command. They talk a lot about social skills and having better social interactions, and there's millions more on there that I'm sure you'll find if you search for them. Definitely, you know, if you want to improve your socializing, you need to practice, but it's good to actually look at some of these resources because you will pick up little tiny things that will stick with you and help all of your interactions. For me, one of the biggest was, like I said, that listening thing, just learning to not think about what I'm going to say next and think about the other person instead and what they're saying. So do pay attention to those things. I hope this helps you. Thanks for listening. Take care. So I hope you guys enjoyed the longer video than usual. If you managed to get past all the audio issues and that and made it to the end, thanks for sticking around. If you want to stay up to date with my videos, make sure you subscribe and enable all notifications. And if you want to keep watching, check out one of the videos linked on screen. Go watch that and I'll see you there soon. Take care.